lawmakers on Monday voted unanimously to review ties with European Parliament. Wilfred Leandri Hugbeji, the government spokesman, reassured the populace on the quality of work of the 9th legislature. Malians are living in France with no working papers, and they decry the situation of things at their workplace. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to 1 p.m. news edition, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV AFRICA here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel OGOIGBE. Now to the news in detail, starting from the local scene. Now, after the verdict of the Constitutional Court following the legislative elections on the 8th of January 2023, the opposition obtained 28 seats against 81 deputies or senators for the presidential majority. Now, with this result, what should we expect? A probable amendment of the Constitution? Some of the citizens expressed their opinion on this particular issue.
The
tend towards an amendment of the conditions of the Constitution. That is not true. The question is that, are they actually elected for the purpose of amending the Constitution? I do not think so, but that is the case. When they get to the legislature and good suggestions come up for the betterment of the state, which demands the amendment of the Constitution, then the Constitution can be amended. They are in the legislature to represent the people. They are not there for themselves, and that is what the people want. If the people want the Constitution amended, then when it is appropriate, the Constitution must be amended by the legislative arm of government. That is the will of the people. Do you understand? So that is it. It is not the will of the senators, but rather it is the will of the people. They are there individually. All those who were elected are unique in their own way. They came out of a family, which is a social cycle. It is the people who elected them, and it is their duty to do what the people want, and that is what should be done. Every legislature, there is a party that controls the majority. It is evident that the people have chosen. And what the people want is what the legislature should do. It is up to them to know the heart cry of the people, and this can only be achieved by associating closely with the populace. If the people want the Constitution to be amended, then it should be amended. It must also be voted on before the Constitution is amended. It is the duty of the legislature to study, to really see what the people want and try to do what the people want. These are my thoughts regarding this subject.
En temps normal, c'est vrai que la mouvance ayant regroupé, n'est-ce pas, 53 députés.
Normally, it is true that a movement is well grouped, is it not? 53 members of parliament from the Renewal Progressive Union Party, 28 members of parliament from the Democratic Republican Bloc. In the Beninese National Assembly, the Beninese legislature, there is a presidential majority in the National Assembly. But the question you're asking is that, is it appropriate? Is it not a new revision of the Constitution? Is the Constitution that existed, has it been voted for? This Constitution that is in existence, has it already been put to test? Have we finished experimenting to the point of considering amending the Constitution? Is it necessary? Is it not important to take time to experiment, to see the loopholes, the faults, the gaps, the weaknesses of this Constitution before thinking of a new amendment? So I do not think it is appropriate. To do what the Beninese want is to know what is needed. Certainly, there has been evolution. We have seen some things that have changed, but also it will be necessary that we do the needful. Crossing over to the news in brief, this is a start story. Journalists in Cameroon gathered on Monday, the 23rd of January in Yaoundé to pay respect and demand justice for the killing of their colleague Martinez Zogo, who was abducted last week and whose body was found this weekend near the capital. Back to the local scene. Wilfred Leandre OGOIGBE did not fail to reassure the populace on the quality of work of the ninth legislature, but also the parliamentarian majority held by the government in view of the announced results. He is the spokesperson to the government.
Satisfaction parce que cette majorité confortable va lui permettre de continuer à mettre en œuvre son programme d'action du gouvernement, dont les impacts sur nos populations sont de plus en plus évidents, de plus en plus manifeste, à telle enseigne que les populations elles-mêmes viennent ainsi de signifier au gouvernement qu'elles comprennent de plus en plus sa politique, disent au chef de l'État qu'elles lui font davantage confiance pour continuer à mettre en œuvre.
There is satisfaction because this comfortable majority will allow him to continue to implement his government actions program, whose impact on our people is increasingly evident, becoming more and more evident as the day goes by. To the extent that the people themselves have just told the government that they understand its policy. In this respect, the political parties are telling the head of state that they have more confidence in him to continue implementing his policy, which is why they do not intend to obstruct his action by granting a majority to an opposition that could decide tomorrow to question the fundamental choices that have been made and that are producing the results that we are increasingly observing. It goes without saying that this is an approval. I would say that it is a popular ratification of the government's actions, of the fundamental options taken by a country since 2016, because it seemed to me that I heard certain political actors and even certain media actors, and they share the same thoughts, making this election a referendum for or against President Patrice Talon. And I want to specify here that Patrice Talon did not even get involved in the campaign. However, he was in the dark and the people have just given him a resounding majority. So it was a beautiful ratification of the policy of Patrice Talon as the head of state and the head of government, the policy of his government, and it is an absolute mark of confidence. If we are democratic and we consider that in a democratic system like ours, the truth belongs to the people, because the people are not mistaken, they make choices and they own up to the choices. We respect the people's choice, and on the government side, we respect the choices of all our fellow citizens who, on that day, did not go to vote for various reasons. Scientists, sociologists, and political scientists can analyze the various reasons some people did not exercise their franchise. We respect the choice of 25%, I would say 30% overall, of the population who chose the opposition parties. We also respect and appreciate the choice of 70% who chose the parties that support the government actions. I say this because, on the contrary, it seemed to me that one of the parties in the competition had only 16 votes. If the party recognizes the areas it was unable to win the election and consider the people that voted, it is unfortunate that it does not recognize and respect a large part of the people who did not vote for it, because its attitude demonstrates the rest of the people were right or did not even exist. You will have been right in recognizing where you won, to recognize also where you lost, to say that it is a choice of our fellow citizens. We respect them. That is the attitude of democracy. We respect the choice of those who did not vote for the parties that support the government's actions, just as we respect and appreciate the choice of those who voted for the parties that support the government's actions. Away from the local scene, crossing over to Morocco, Moroccan lawmakers on Monday voted unanimously to review ties with the European Parliament, accusing it of meddling after a resolution that urged the kingdom to respect press freedom. Now, members of the both houses of Morocco's parliament met in the capital Rabat for a joint session in response to non-binding European text adopted on Thursday. Moroccan lawmakers on Monday voted unanimously to review ties with the European Parliament, accusing it of meddling after a resolution that urged the kingdom to respect press freedom. Members of both houses of Morocco's parliament met in the capital Rabat for a joint session in response to the non-binding European text adopted on Thursday. In a statement after their session, the Moroccan legislatures called the European resolution an unacceptable attack against the sovereignty, dignity, and independence of judicial institutions in the kingdom. As a result, Morocco's parliament decided to reconsider its relations with the European Parliament and submit them for an overall evaluation. Under 1996 agreements, Morocco and the European Union have been linked in tight economic and commercial relations, particularly in the area of agriculture and fishing. European lawmakers in Strasbourg had urged Morocco to respect freedom of expression and media freedom and to guarantee imprisoned journalists a fair trial. The Reporters Without Borders watchdog welcomed the European Union Parliament vote as a break with the 25 years of passivity. Some lawmakers saw Morocco's former colonial power France as pushing the European measure. Tauzi, whose party belongs to the majority coalition, was referring to warming ties between Paris and Algeria, Morocco's neighbors and rival, and a major exporter of gas to European nations. Two of the most prominent journalist cases in Morocco are those of Omar Radi and Souleymane Rassouni, both sentenced at appeal last year on sexual abuse charges. Radi, aged 36, who has been critical of Moroccan authorities, was sentenced to 6 years in prison for rape and espionage, charges he denies. Rassouni, on the other hand, is serving a 5-year sentence. He too has always maintained his innocence and says he was persecuted because of his opinion.
Today, the Moroccan Parliament wished to recall that we are there with an outstretched hand and that we are a strategic partner, a reliable partner on whom Europe can count, and will demand a little more respect from its institutions. We've sent a clear message that we need to review the status and the relations with the European Parliament. We must assess what has been done and what must be done, but we cannot keep ignoring it like that. And they come and change their minds and teach us lessons. We are a country with roots and centuries of civilization, and we cannot accept that someone acts like this and starts lecturing us senselessly.
Moroccan authorities insist the judiciary is independent and that cases against journalists have nothing to do with journalism. Last week, European parliamentarians also said they were deeply concerned by allegations that Moroccan authorities had bribed its members and reaffirmed the European Parliament's commitment to fully investigating corruption. The corruption scandal involving MEPs that erupted last month sent shockwaves through the European Union circle in Brussels, with the MEPs accused of taking bribes from Qatar as well as Morocco. Both countries vehemently deny the accusations. Following European resolution, an authorized source at the Foreign Ministry in Rabat, quoted by a media outlet close to the government, said the European Union measures will have no impact on Morocco. The source said it fits with the aggression and harassment sustained by the kingdom from those that stopped by Morocco's development, prosperity, and strong rule in the region. Olympic. At least 23 civilians were killed on Sunday the night on the 22nd of January in an attack attributed to the Allied Democratic Forces in a village in the Democratic Republic of Congo's east. Now, this was stated by local sources. Now, the sources stated that 24 people, including 6 women, were killed in this incursion of the ADF in the village of Makugwe in the territory of Beni in northern Kivu, stated Roger Wangeve, the president of the local civil society. Away from that, Gaye Sarambuno is used to toiling long days for a pittance. Now, he is a Malian living in France with no working papers, but it is a situation that occurs around the world. The difference here is that Sarambune is one of an army of construction workers preparing next year's Olympic Games in Paris. More information in the following report. Gaye Sarambuno is used to toiling long days for a pittance. He is a Malian living in France with no working papers, but it is a situation that occurs all around the world. The difference here is that Sarambuno is one of an army of construction workers preparing next year's Olympic Games in Paris. The fact that France's upcoming sporting showcase is being put together with the help of illegal workers is becoming a source of political and social tension. For 3 months, Sarambuno, age 41, worked between 8 and 11-hour shifts for 80 euros per day. Obviously, overtime was never paid, he said ruefully.
In the morning, when you go onto the door, you will see that all those who come, most of them are immigrants, undocumented workers. All these beautiful stadiums that people see, in reality, what lies behind, the stadiums are built on the backs of poor people, on the backs of people who don't have the power the means. They discriminated against us. They have exploited us.
Trade unionist Bernard Thibault, who co-chairs the Paris 2024 Social Charter Monitoring Committee, says there is a great deal of hypocrisy on the part of the political authorities. As a sign of concern, the Labour Inspectorate has created a specialized unit that has been checking nearly one site a day for the past 2 years. In June, 9 irregular workers were identified on a site run by Solidio, the public company responsible for building facilities and infrastructure for the Olympics.
Il n'y a pas de congés payés. Les heures sup ne sont pas payées.
There are no paid leave. Overtime is not paid, and overtime in the construction industry is consequent, especially for the Olympic Games, because things have to be done on time. So that's the big advantage of having this type of system in place and the use of undocumented workers. You really have to assume your responsibilities, because to go off rails like this, you can very well end up having this in our society, or what we have in Qatar.
At the same time, a local public prosecutor's office opened a preliminary investigation into the employment of foreigners without a permit in an organized gang. Solidio swiftly took the necessary steps by terminating the contract of the offending subcontractors, but also of the construction giants that used it, said Antonio Dushrish, the company's strategy director. Since then, procedures have been tightened up, he assured, while admitting it is impossible to set up a system entirely impervious to such fraud.
The boss will pay, but for example, you work for 2 months, then he pay you 1. That's how it is. For example, I work in December. He doesn't pay on the 1st or 5th, but until 20th or 25th of January. That's how it is. But I accept, because he knows my situation, and I know it too.
Malian workers want nothing more than to be regularized, so they do not have to live in fear of an identity check. The left-wing CGT union is preparing to submit an application for Saramboa to receive his working papers. If he gets the working papers within 18 months, the recent hardship will seem like nothing more than a bad dream. The Burkina Faso government clarified on Monday that it has asked ex-colonial ruler France to pull its troops out of the insurgency-hit country within a month. Now, France deploys about 400 special forces soldiers to the ruling Burkina Faso, but relations have deteriorated and tensions have soared in recent months between France and Burkina Faso. Over to Ethiopia. Eritrean forces have been leaving towns in the Wharton region of Tigray, locals stated, as the United States hailed a pull-out scene as key to a landmark peace deal. A fighting between the federal troops and Tigray rebels erupted in northern Ethiopia in November 2020 and raged for 2 years before the two sides signed a peace deal in South Africa's capital, Pretoria, on the 2nd of November 2022. Eritrean forces have been leaving towns in the Wharton region of Tigray, locals stated. This happened as the United States hailed a pull-out scene as key to a landmark peace deal. Fighting between federal troops and Tigray rebels erupted in northern Ethiopia in November 2020 and raged on for 2 years before the two sides signed a peace deal in South Africa's capital, Pretoria, on the 2nd of November 2022. Under the agreement, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, agreed to disarm and re-establish the authority of the federal government in return for the Ethiopian government reopening access to Wharton region in dire need of food and humanitarian aid. But the Pretoria agreement made no provision for the withdrawal of Eritrean troops who fought on the side of the federal government and who were accused by the United States and human rights group of some of the worst abuses in the bloody conflict. On the ground in Tigray, locals stated that convoys of Eritrean troops have been leaving the towns of Shire and Adwa, although some soldiers still remained on ground. Another local confirmed having seen a convoy of trucks, buses, tanks and artillery pieces rolling out of town. However, he said some Eritrean soldiers were still walking the streets around the markets on Saturday. With access to Tigray limited, it is impossible to independently verify the situation on the ground. The withdrawal has not yet been confirmed by the peace deal signatories or the agreement's observation missions. The war broke out in November 2020 when the TPLF, which had held power in Ethiopia until Abiy's rise, attacked Ethiopian federal military facilities in Tigray. Abiy, who had won the Nobel Peace Prize in part for reconciling with Eritrea, unleashed a major offensive against the TPLF, which at one point had appeared close to advancing on the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. Situated on the border with Tigray, Eritreans sent in troops at the start of the conflict to support Ethiopian forces. Addis Ababa and Asmara denied for months any Eritrean involvement in the conflict, but Abiy later admitted their presence in March 2021. The departure of the Eritrean troops has been announced several times before, but never verified. The exact toll of the war, which has largely come to an end, remains unknown. The International Crisis Group think tank and Amnesty International have called it one of the deadliest conflicts in the world. Sadly, this conflict has displaced more than 2 million people and left more in need of humanitarian aid. On the sports scene, briefly, Moroccan football player Achraf Hakimi won the award for the best Arab sportsman in Saudi Arabia. Now, the 24-year-old player was rewarded for his outstanding 2022 season with his club Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, and his odyssey into World Cup history with the Moroccan national squad. In Saudi Arabia's capital, Riyadh, some of the biggest names in the movie industry, sports and entertainment from the region and beyond gathered for the Joy Awards on Saturday, the 21st of January. On the foreign scene, in the remote Tharpar Desert in Pakistan's Sindh province, the ratio of boys and girls in school remains uneven, but one young girl is determined to defy the odds. Now, Pushpa Kaitaram is the first girl in the family to reach high school, and she received most of her support from her father, but sadly, his untimely death almost forced her to stop her schooling.
A local organization's research shows that among the roughly 60 public schools in the Tharparkar district in Sindh, only 7 are open for girls.
I have seen many girls who don't go out anywhere and are told to only do chores around the house and cook meals. They can't fight for their dreams. They don't even know that they can dream.
Pushpa Khaitaram is the first girl in her family to reach high school. She received most of her support from her father, but his untimely death recently almost forced her to stop her education.
My father wanted me to study. After his death, my uncle suggested I stop studying, since I would be married one day and would not need any education for that. But I made sure they knew how much I wanted to learn and fulfill my father's desire of me becoming a doctor. And once my teacher told my family how I am doing really well, my brother decided that I continue my education.
Every day, Pushpa walks 2 kilometers to get to school, where boys and girls learn together. Sain Samar, a local teacher, turned this once boys' school into a co-ed facility in 2012 after enrolling his daughter Darshana in the 6th grade. He is also a teacher at the school. His daughter Darshana died from a snakebite soon after enrolling in this school, prompting Samar to take on this mission to educate the other girls in the area. Today, more than 100 girls study alongside nearly 300 boys.
We tell the parents that we will support them in every way to educate their girls. Whatever problem they may face, we are here to extend help and support them to get their girls educated. We can say that around 30% of the girls in this school come from at least a distance of 20 or 30 or 50 kilometers in this village.
Pushpa is the only girl in her family who has reached the matriculation level. She's very proud of her achievement.
If I didn't study, or if this school wasn't here, I would be like other girls who are not able to study, who do not know their rights, who do not know what's right or wrong or what life is. They suffer.
With her family's support, Pushpa has her eyes set on being her family's first female doctor. For Sidradar in the desert Tharparkar district of Sindh, Pakistan,
Welcome back, our viewers. You're still tuned into Golfe TV Africa, the 1 p.m. news, and this is the newspaper review segment on Golfe TV Africa. Now, as usual, I have a lot of stories on the Punch Nigeria front page. I have the Guardian Post Cameroon. Now, let's get started. Now, this story caught my attention, and this story says, power outage disrupts APC rally and stops Buhari and Tinubu speech. Now, APC is the leading political party in Nigeria, and they said when they were campaigning, there was light outage and it disrupts the president, incumbent president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the presidential candidate of the APC, Tinubu, from giving their speech. Now, this is positive development in Lagos, saying Lagos project jobs as president opens rice mill and seaport. Apparently, when you have seaport, when you have rice mill, it simply means there'll be people that would now have jobs. That's a positive development. Now, moving over to the side of the pages of the Punch Nigeria, Diphtheria, that is the new pandemic in Nigeria, cutting across from Lagos to Kano and other states, and it says, the federal government of Nigeria deploys a response team as cases rise. Such an ironic situation happening in Nigeria. Now, moving to the top part of the pages of the Punch, it says, federal government of Nigeria to forecast fresh flooding in Plateau, Bayelsa, and others. We thought the flooding was over in Nigeria, but as the case may be, there's still a forecast that says Bayelsa and Plateau, there's likely going to be flood in these two countries. Moving away from the pages of the Punch Nigeria, let's cross over to the pages of the front page Liberia. Now, on the front page Liberia today, the top story is talking about voters. This story, it says, voters required to use national identification cards to obtain biometric voters ID for this year's general and presidential election. The voters card is becoming really important, not just in Nigeria, but other countries like Liberia. And this story says millions may not vote in October elections, if you know you're curious. And it says, according to the National Identification Registry, only 605 of the 5.3 million Liberians have obtained a national ID card, and the mandatory NEC requirement of having national IDs to obtain a biometric ID for this year's election. Now, it's very important that Africans get to the point of exercising their franchise. Now, still on the pages of the front page Liberia, this story is talking about Lassa fever, and it's saying Lassa fever outbreak in Bong. In Nigeria, you have the Diphtheria outbreak, but right now in this country, you're going to be having the Lassa fever outbreak. And okay, moving away from that, and our dear viewers, this is where we're going to conclude today's edition of the African Newspaper Review, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa, here in the city of Cotonou with Hazel OGOIGBE. Thanks for tuning in. This is the end of the 1 p.m. news. Keep tuning in to Golfe TV Africa. I am Hazel OGOIGBE. Enjoy the rest of your day.